pressure off the edge, and it's intercepted. D'Angelo Pons roll out the big red carpet. Touchdown, Indiana.
It's time for the Big Red Carpet. Here's your host, Rhett Lewis.
All right, friends, we are nearly there as we welcome you to another episode of the Big Red Carpet. I am Rhett Lewis, excited to be back here with you, getting set for the Big Ten Championship game on Saturday at Lucas Oil, and a couple of extra content pieces this week. So this is obviously this episode of Big Red Carpet, in addition to what we did breaking down the Purdue game, which of course still available for you if you want to go back and relive the 100th bucket game, a dominant Indiana victory. Our Substack community is up and running and still available for you to get in. The price for December and January, $27 a month. You can also get an annual subscription, which will keep you rolling 1 year to the date from which you sign up. And we're going to keep this content going for you throughout the spring, even after this postseason run. So a lot of stuff out there for you. We've got a Purdue offensive and defensive film breakdown. If you haven't seen that yet, that's available for you through the Substack subscription only. Also have an episode out now where we go behind enemy lines with former Ohio State and NFL linebacker Bobby Carpenter. Talk about all things that's going on with Ohio State right now. Plus, we get into a little film breakdown of Ohio State linebacker Arvell Reese and Indiana linebacker Aiden Fisher. Really had some great insight from Bobby. Of course, has played at the highest level at that position and has seen greatness at that position. Talking about those two key components of each defense going into this matchup against Ohio State. Going to play a portion of that interview with Bobby for you coming up here in just a little bit on this episode, but the full interview with the film breakdown is available for you on Substack. Also, final piece of content before the championship game coming to you through the Substack subscription as well will be a video portion of the Ohio State scouting kind of breakdown of some of their best players on offense and defense. I'm going to give that to you here, but you'll get the film that goes along with it coming up on the Substack community. So I'm going to give you as much as we can here, and then I hope you'll join us and get a subscription to what we're doing to give you the biggest and best content for the biggest and best Indiana football season out there. So this is what we got today. Big Ten defensive players of the year and all Big Ten conference defensive selections along with special team selections are there. We're going to run through that. There's obviously been some news with recruiting. Not going to get a ton into that other than to say that it was a pretty uneventful day for Indiana. All the recruits that they had hoped to sign in this early signing period are signed, sealed, delivered, which every school in the country cannot say on a day like this, including Ohio State, who has seen some waffling from one of their top targets after Brian Hartline has been reported to be the next head coach at the University of South Florida once Alex Golesh left to take the Auburn job. So Brian Hartline, play caller, offensive coordinator for Ryan Day at Ohio State, potentially on the move to South Florida. But sounds like there is a scenario where he continues to coach for Ohio State through this postseason run. But a lot of moving parts there. Again, talk to Bobby Carpenter about that, and we're going to have that for you coming up here in just a little bit. Let's talk defensive players, all conference selections. And to do that, I'm just going to kind of share the screen here with you so that we can kind of take a look at this together. I just thought Indiana so well represented on the defensive side. And this is really cool because Indiana and Ohio State have the exact same number of first team all Big Ten defensive selections. For Ohio State, it's the two linebackers, Arvell Reese and Sonny Stiles right there. Also got their defensive tackle, Caden McDonald, who is, again, first-round pick type of talent right there. Same with Arvell Reese, probably a top 10 player. Sonny Stiles is going to get drafted. And then how about Caleb Downs? I mean, obviously. Like, we started the season, everybody talking about Caleb Downs, and then it was like, holy smokes, Arvell Reese is incredible. Caden McDonald is surging, and then Sonny Stiles is what he has been the last 2 years, just a really dominant player. But Caleb Downs continuing to do what he does so well. But for Indiana, check it out. Tyreek Tucker gets a first-team nod from the coaches. That is incredible. And then Aiden Fisher, not a huge surprise there, even though he missed a little bit of time, still in there as one of the three linebackers. But how about Lou Moore? Like, the journeys for Tyreek Tucker and then also for Lou Moore, incredible. Like, the path that they took to get to IU to become contributors and impact players at IU, and the execution that they've had, it's been phenomenal. Obviously, D'Angelo Pons, no surprise there, one of the best corners in the entire country. Second team nods for IU, Elijah Hardy. Elijah Hardy has been fantastic, really, throughout this entire season, a big part of the defensive success for Indiana this year, especially when they get into those, he's in the base linebacker set, but then also a big piece of that when Bones Jones comes on, who, by the way, Bones Jones, if I went down here to the media selection, he gets a third team nod, which is awesome. Glad to see that for Isaiah Jones. So you see there at the linebacker level, Fisher, Hardy, Jones, that 3 linebacker set for IU has been so productive. And for Elijah Hardy, quiet 7 sacks on the year. Like, he has been extremely impactful, blitzing from the second level, making those impact havoc type plays has been awesome to see. So then going back up here, just kind of continuing to look like that's it for the second team. And then the third team I mentioned, you go down, you find Isaiah Jones there. Now, the media did not put Lou Moore into the first team. They had him at the second team, but Amari Ferrell jumps in as a second team safety. I think he is an NFL type player. I've mentioned that to you guys before. I thought that was a great nod. Fisher, Tucker, and Pons all still get the first team nods there. And then Ohio State well represented kind of throughout, as you might expect. Jalen McClain down there. Davison Igbinosun gets a first team nod at corner. And then Caden Curry, one of the Indiana products on Ohio State squad right there as a first team edge rusher. He ends up on the second team on the coaches list. Honorable mentions. This is where we've got a problem. Okay. Look, Mikhail Kamara has not put up the numbers that I think we've come to expect from him after last year, but he's still been an impactful player. He ends up honorable mention. I kind of understand that. Stephen Dailey down here as a defensive honorable mention. That is an absolute travesty. This is a player who has dominated the conference portion of the schedule. Took him a minute to kind of find his way in this defense, but he has been as impactful as any defensive player in the conference and in the country. He leads the conference and the country in tackles for loss with 18. He had 4.5 against Purdue. His level of play has really ascended over the course of the last couple of weeks, especially really since like the Oregon game, the Iowa game, and then he was the defensive player of the game for Indiana against Michigan State. And once Kellan Wyatt went down for the season, his play has really skyrocketed and gone to an even bigger level, even higher level, really. So I can't believe that Stephen Dailey is sitting here on the honorable mention. I mean, deserves to be up here with one of those other, with one of the first, second, or third teams at minimum. But he's going to be a great player. He's going to continue making big time plays for Indiana. So I think that's, look, awards are what they are. Distinctions, honors, they're great, but ultimately more work to do, right? More work to do. I mean, and again, acknowledging those players for this distinction, but still greater accomplishments are out there for Indiana. And then on the special teams, how about Nico Radicic, your first team kicker, all Big Ten kicker? I thought it was phenomenal work. He hasn't missed a kick this year. How do you not give him the nod? He's been incredible. And then shout out Mark Langston. Shout out Long Snappers Matter. Okay. Got him in the portal, came over, and has been tremendous for IU. And then down here on the third team, I think this is actually kind of like a sleeper, big-time key to the game on Saturday. Jonathan Brady, punt returns. He has been able to generate some excellent field position for IU when he's not getting into the end zone. But still, even when he doesn't score, he has found ways to impact the game through punt returns. So shout out to Jonathan Brady up there as well. Okay, so the Big Ten individual award winners, Indiana didn't win any of those except for Nico. Nico won the kicker of the year, which is phenomenal. Named for Wisconsin's Jim Bakken and Michigan State's Morton Anderson, who's a NFL Hall of Famer, Pro Football Hall of Famer, Morton Anderson. So big time honor there for Nico Radicic. But in terms of position players on offense or defense, Ohio State had a number of guys. Caden McDonald, defensive lineman of the year. Caleb Downs, defensive player of the year. And look, it's hard to argue with any of these, but that's just the players. And then Arvell Reese was the linebacker of the year as well. But this right here, the Hayes Schembechler Coach of the Year, might as well. I mean, by the end of it, we might have to throw Cignetti's name in here because he's won it in back-to-back years. And look, you certainly get it, right? I think this was just well-deserved. How do you give it to anybody else? He's never lost a game at home, has now completed the most successful seasons back-to-back in Indiana football history, including the undefeated season. First appearance at a Big Ten championship game. What more can you say about Coach Sig? He has just been absolutely phenomenal. So I thought that was awesome to see that he gets acknowledged that way. So we'll get the offensive players out here, and I'll have that on another breakdown coming up for you. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into another post here before the game. Probably be on that on the Substack community as we get into the Ohio State scouting report and breakdown with the tape, and we'll go through the offensive players at that time. But what I want to do, and again, we are going to have we'll talk a little bit about some of Ohio State's best players on offense and defense coming up, but we're going to do that in a way with my guy, Bobby Carpenter. First round pick of the Dallas Cowboys, a legend at Ohio State, was one of the best linebackers in their recent history as well. He and A.J. Hawk were phenomenal up there. He has a great show out there. If you want to get familiar with Ohio State, called the Bobby Carpenter Show. It's available for you on YouTube. I invite you to check that out, but also want to give you a portion of the interview that Bobby and I did today. And again, the film breakdown that I did with Bobby is available for you on the Big Red Carpet Substack. So that's where you can find that full interview and that film breakdown. But do want to give you a piece of our conversation where we talk a little bit about Brian Hartline potentially leaving Ohio State, and we talk about Matt Patricia's defense, which Bobby actually played in his final year in the NFL with the New England Patriots. So without further ado, Bobby Carpenter. All right, Bob, let's jump into this thing, man. Excited to chat with you here about this Big Ten championship game. I mean, look, I think it's just more proof that we're sitting here as alums from the best conference in college football when you could have number one and number two meet for a conference championship. Am I right?
Yeah, it's exciting, man. It's going to be a fun time. And Indiana, I think a lot of people maybe thought last year was just a flash in the pan, and then they followed up 11-1 with going 12-0, and even better, and a huge win out at Autzen against Oregon earlier this season.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's, I mean, the three road game victories for IU were big, obviously at Iowa. And then, look, I think people see Penn State's record and they forget the talent that Penn State has. I mean, you guys saw them as well. I mean, and there's still really good players on that team. And Indiana was able to do it, come back and win at the end. So, I think another thing to think about is as the Big Ten, all conference selections come out, on the defensive side of the ball, Indiana and Ohio State dominate. 4 picks apiece on the first team all Big Ten list there. We're going to talk about some of those players here in just a little bit, but we did get kind of some late breaking stuff. I know it's not official yet, but hearing a little bit about Brian Hartline, maybe heading out to coach the USF Bulls down there in Tampa. His name's been thrown out there a bunch, obviously, the last couple of years, just how good he is. What's your take on that if it ends up happening and how that could affect Ohio State down the road here?
Well, I think it's impacting a little bit today. I mean, there's been signing day that's happened, right, and there's a lot of ambiguity. A couple wide receivers have paused and held up, most notably Chris Henry Jr., who's very talented. He's been committed for a long time, and we'll see if that stays the case or if he changes. Brian Hartline's been terrific on the recruiting trail since he's been at Ohio State and done a great job signing and then developing players there. From what I've understood, getting ready to head over to the facility here after this, is that he is going to stay on and coach through the playoff. Now, I'm not 100% confirmed. That's kind of been reported. I'll find out a little bit more today, but just seeing kind of what he's doing with that. So I don't think that changes a whole lot here, obviously, in the short term. But then moving forward, yes, how do you continue to recruit at a high level and develop those receivers? Who comes in as that position coach? There's a number of good candidates. There's some internal. There's some former some alums out there. And then I'm sure Ryan Day's got a deep pool from trying to get the best people he can as well.
Yeah. Ultimately, I would imagine he would want to stay on. It's hard though, right? With the way that the portal is going to be working into January, where Ohio State hopes to continue to be playing and to be kind of measuring up both sides of it when you're now the play caller, right, and the game planner. But look, Ryan Day's called plays before too, so I think that's pretty nice little little ace to have up your sleeve there as well. So I'm sure they'll figure out the best workflow if that does end up happening. But ultimately, credit to what Brian Hartline has done over the course of his entire career. Deserves an opportunity to be a head coach, if we're being frank, right? All right, let's talk a little bit about this defense. I got to go back and remember, was Matt Patricia the DC when you were in New England with the Patriots?
Yeah, my last year playing was my only year in New England. That was his first year as the official defensive coordinator. So coming in there, I worked with Matty a lot in the offseason. He's a great communicator, obviously very intelligent, does a good job of teaching concepts and the overall defense. And when they moved in about 5 houses down from me. So it's been fun to kind of get to know his family a little better. And, they've adapted and adjusted well. And I think they're excited to be here. And I think when he got here, he goes, this is great. He goes, these are some of the best players I've ever got a chance to coach. Cause you get so many of the guys as opposed to potentially what it looked like before in the NFL where, you only get so many draft picks a year and you have a salary cap.
Yeah. I would agree with you. I was talking about this with a buddy of mine who he and I covered the Patriots together in Boston in the early 2010s. And, when they were really starting to roll on defense. And, I was like, if you compare, like if you take into account levels of play, these are the most talented players that Matt Patricia has ever coached. You know what I mean? Like when you think about it, like in New England, sure, there was talent. Vince Wilfork was great. And, Devin McCourty was, excellent. But like when you think about the pound for pound talent, at every position, Ohio State wins the day there, I think, pretty convincingly. One of those guys, obviously, that we're talking about here is Arvell Reese, who was the linebacker of the year in the conference. To me, Bob, and you know it better than I do, but feels like a true like hybrid type of player. Like you can kind of put him anywhere. He lines up out on the edge a bunch, almost as much as he lines up in the box, if not more. He can drop into coverage. He can rush the passer. I kind of, when I think about Matt Patricia and what he's done in his past and players that have played, he kind of reminds me, not necessarily like of the player that Jamie Collins was, but in the way that Patricia used Jamie Collins, kind of using Arvell Reese the same way. Does that fit to you?
Yeah, it's funny that you brought that up because that's kind of the analogy. Because I talked to a number of guys. I was Josh Boyer's here on staff too, who was in New England for a while. And when you have a guy that's long and versatile that can play on the ball and off the ball, some coaches will just be like, all right, we'll just play him here and let him go. Well, you're really not using all of the guy's skills, and you're not allowing your defense to develop as much as you'd like, because that's what makes it tough. You played quarterback, understanding when there's a guy that you can walk up and you can go from a 3 down, essentially look to a 4 down or a 5 down and manipulate that. And the guy can play on the edge and he can play off the ball. He can pressure, he can drop back in coverage. And so it's really the versatility of his athletic skill set, being 6'4", 245, and, being able to run and being a smart enough player also to be able to absorb it all.
Yeah, no question. I thought that was that's a great way to put it. And Jamie Collins in his heyday in New England was tough to deal with. That dude was making plays all over the place. Man, sure do appreciate Bobby joining us here. That was awesome to see, and I'll put some of that out on social media as well. For Ohio State, let's start on the offensive side of the ball. You just heard a little bit about the defense. We'll get back to that in a moment from what we talked about there with Bobby. But for Ohio State, Julien Sayin. Look, it starts there, right? Heisman Trophy candidate. And look, in a big way, this is kind of like a battle, right? For the Heisman, depending on when all these votes have been cast. But Julien Sayin versus Fernando Mendoza, like that's the quarterback matchups as good as it gets in the country. The difference, in my opinion, is Fernando's experience. But Sayin has played like a veteran player this year. He has been really good. 30 touchdowns, just 5 interceptions. He has taken care of the football. He's only been sacked 9 times. It's pretty good. And when he has been under pressure, he's been able to get out of it. He's got the legs to get out of pressure. He's not going to play like a Damon Williams at Washington or a Bryce Underwood at Michigan with his legs, but has enough, kind of like Fernando does. He hasn't been under pressure a lot. And I think that's something to think about here with this game against IU. How Coach Haynes can devise the game plan to change the looks on Julien Sayin and then to get the pressure behind it where he's guessing a little bit, kind of like he did with Luke Altmaier. Remember, we talked about that in the days leading up to that Illinois game. But Indiana's ability to make Julien Sayin hesitate and then to have a pressure package built in to be able to take advantage of that hesitation and that delay in the ball coming out of his hand. Because when the ball comes out of his hands, obviously high-level targets out there on the receiving end. tight end, Max Clare, the receivers, Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, obviously the headliners. That is a big piece of this game. How you can change the looks, how you can, again, all the while you got to make sure you're keeping a top on the defense. You cannot allow Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate to be streaking downfield for big plays that way. But to change up the looks, to cause some hesitation, and then to create pressure behind it, where you can get them on the ground, force throwaways, force errant throws, doesn't have a lot of them. Right. So credit to what Ohio State has done. Their offensive line is coming off maybe their best game of the year in protecting Sayin, and then also generating run game production. We'll get into that as well. But Sayin's really good. Again, among the least pressured quarterbacks in Power 4 football, he has just 92 of his dropbacks where he faced pressure. Fernando's, in that category as well, just 104 of Fernando's throws. And that's all top 10 in terms of least pressures faced for quarterbacks in Power 4 football. Even closer really to the top, because Mark Gronowski from Iowa faced the least pressure, but he also had less dropbacks, right? Less passes called at Iowa, as you guys know. So really impressed with Julien Sayin. He makes all the throws. Again, got a great breakdown for you on some of his best stuff coming up on the Substack feed here in just a little bit. So Jeremiah Smith, both he and Carnell Tate did not play in the game leading up to Michigan. It was the only game that Jeremiah Smith missed. He was limited against UCLA, but still finishes with 73 catches, 950 yards, and 11 touchdowns. Had one against Michigan, came back, played well there. I mean, what more do you need to know about Jeremiah Smith? Physical, fast, disruptive. I mean, he can get down the field in a hurry. He eats up grass, big, tall frame. Can win contested catches, can win with the ball in his hands right away and make you miss. He is essentially the prototypical wide receiver and will be, when he is eligible after next season to join the NFL, he will do so probably as the number one pick, if not shortly thereafter, whatever quarterback gets taken first. He's that good, right? Carnell Tate missed 3 games going into the Michigan game where he returned, and he was actually, for a part of the season, kind of the more dominant receiver, as defenses, as you might imagine, paying a lot of attention to Jeremiah Smith. Tate had a really good run before missing those 3 games, 44 catches, 793 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Again, missing 3, that's pretty dang good, especially with Jeremiah Smith on the other side, and he's going to get his targets no matter what the coverage is dictating. So those 2 guys are, a chief piece of the concern for Indiana's defense going into this game, and will be a heavily game planned for by Coach Haynes. And I'm sure he'll come up with a great plan to keep them corralled. Helps have great guys out there to cover too. And that's, what Pons has done. Jamari Sharp with his speed will play well in this game. And Devin Boykin in the slot, I think, has really come on. Like he and Stephen Dailey, to me, have been the most improved players on the defensive side of the ball over the course of the entire season. They get better every week. And I love seeing that. Okay. The run game is coming off arguably its most successful game of the year against Michigan. And Bo Jackson is the guy leading that charge. Not his dad, by the way. Bo Jackson, the freshman running back for Ohio State, did not play a snap in the opener against Texas, a game in which Ohio State won. And then finishes the year on an absolute tear, 3 straight 100-yard games in a career high, 117 yards on 22 carries against Michigan, finishes just a hair shy of 1,000 rushing yards. He, like I mentioned with Boykin and Daley on the IU side, continues to get better as the season goes on and is playing really good football. That offensive line is playing well together. And so, look, Indiana did it against Oregon. Indiana's defensive line was the more physical unit along the line of scrimmage in that matchup. They have to pull off a similar feat against Ohio State's offensive line. You cannot allow them to be able to run the ball effectively and then still have the ability to throw downfield with Tate and Jeremiah Smith. That's got to be, again, Indiana's defense has been known for putting pressure on the quarterback and stopping the run. That has got to maintain in this game for Indiana to be successful overall. Okay, so that's a little bit about the offense. Again, the offensive line playing, as well as they have all season. So they are clicking on all cylinders. Look, as far as Brian Hartline, maybe not calling the plays or just, maybe having less input on all of this. I don't think it'll matter as much for the Big Ten championship game as it might for the college football playoff. I would imagine Coach Hartline's still very much engaged here, but it helps that, this is Ryan Day's offense. He's called plays here before, so they're going to be just fine in terms of their prep and in terms of their execution. But you do kind of wonder what that's going to look like in terms of how the plan unfolds, with how they've delegated things in the run-up, knowing that Coach Hartline is likely off to USF as their new head coach. Defensive side of the ball. Caleb Downs, Defensive Player of the Year in the conference. We went through that. He does it all. 190 snaps in the box, right? As a kind of like a walk down from a safety spot or lined up as a linebacker. Like, he can do it all there. 128 snaps as a slot corner where he can blitz, where he can cover a receiver as good as anybody on the field. And then he's got, and watch out for him in run support. He will sting you. Then there's 221 snaps where he's got as a free safety in the back end. And he's, in my opinion, he plays as well in each one of those. There's no drop off. Like, he's not better, far and away better in the box as he is as a post safety, or same goes. Like, he is proficient and above the line in all of those categories. He is just an overall excellent player, as instinctual a player as you will find in college football. Like, that dude. That dude is, again, like we're talking about with Jeremiah Smith. Like, he's going to be a top pick. And so will his buddy Arvell Reese, who really jumped onto the scene this year, kind of getting that starting nod right next to Sonny Stiles. But like Caleb Downs, he'll play all over the place too. He's got 200. He actually has more snaps lined up down as an edge player on the line of scrimmage. They'll do that a lot out of a bare front, where they'll, kind of still have those 3 down linemen, and then they'll have Arvell Reese kind of lined up outside as an edge player. He's got 252 snaps in the box as an off-ball linebacker, where he can truly go sideline to sideline. He can cover you. We talked about it there. You heard it with Bobby Carpenter. He reminds me of the way that Matt Patricia used Julien Sayin. Used Jamie Collins, right? Jamie Collins was a second-round pick out of Southern Miss. And I think Arvell Reese is more athletic. I think ultimately he's got a better frame and kind of prototypical build for, what Matt Patricia wants him to do, which allows him to be used in so many different ways. But man, he can cause impact all over the field. Again, I've got a great film breakdown for you with Bobby Carpenter. That's available for you on Substack. So he's got 7 sacks, 20 pressures on 102 pass rush reps. His best games generating pressure were against Texas. Again, good offensive line there. And against Illinois, where he had 2 sacks. I'll show you those 2 sacks actually on that film breakdown. Last 4 weeks, though, just 1 pressure. Didn't have any against Michigan. Might just be that they're using him in a different way, and that he hasn't been as productive in the pass rush game as he was earlier in the season. So just something to kind of monitor there. And I'll be curious to see how they deploy him against Indiana, where, Carter Smith has been phenomenal. Do they want to try the right tackle spot, right? Where you've had, Khalil Benson banged up, Zen Mahalski, started the Purdue game. Khalil came in the second half. They've been kind of going back and forth there with that. Do they want to try it? Let Arvell Reese just rush off the right side? Wait till you see what he did to the right tackle at Illinois. I'll show that to you on the film breakdown on Substack. So Arvell Reese, absolute stud. Caleb Downs, absolute stud. Like, those two could be top 5 draft picks, both of them. That's how good they are. Caden McDonald, also first-round pick, defensive lineman of the year. He'll play right over Pat Coogan as a nose tackle. He will play like in the A-gaps with a shade on the guard or the center. He is absolutely disruptive. Absolutely disruptive for nose tackle or an interior defensive lineman. He can rush the passer, does not have huge sack totals, but can generate pressure, can collapse the pocket that way. Getting Drew Evans back would be huge for IU in a game like this, to kind of be a little bit more stout up there in creating a pocket that Fernando can step into. So that's something to watch there as well. But those are the 3 best players on defense, in my opinion, for Ohio State. Davison Igbinosun, really good as well. He's been a little bit better this year in terms of minimizing penalties. He was a little handsy last year, got called a lot for PI, for holding, for having his hands all over the receivers. I think, part of the reason why he came back, probably could have gone to the NFL last year, but he came back. I think he's gotten better. So that'll be a test for Omar Cooper and Elijah Surratt and that whole crew. EJ Williams, if he gets back, Becker. But excited to see how the receivers do, against Igbinosun and that secondary for Ohio State. I think that'll be a big piece of this game. And then can Indiana run the football? Can they continue to be as successful running the football where, you don't have to worry about Arvell Reese as much rushing the passer and Caden Curry coming off the edge on the other side? I think those are the things to kind of really look at when it comes to Ohio State defensively and some of the areas in which Indiana, can try to attack and find success. That's been the formula. Run the football, hit the RPOs, run after catch with Omar Cooper, Riley Nowakowski, blocking his butt off and then finding some space in the pass game as well. This has got to be, this is the best opponent you faced to date, but you passed every test to date so far as well. And really excited to see how IU gets out there and performs against Ohio State. And again, that's it for this episode. We appreciate your support that you guys have had for us all season long here on Big Red Carpet. We'll continue bringing you this free version of the Big Red Carpet content throughout the college football playoff as well. But do invite you again to join Substack so you can get some of that extra content and all that tape breakdown that you guys have enjoyed throughout the year. So appreciate you guys being with us. I'm Rhett Lewis and look forward to catching up with you following the Big Ten championship game.